They were ordinary days that suddenly mattered more than any of us could have imagined. Little errands, a gas stop, grocery bags, laughter in a bedroom, and then in a morning phone call, everything upended. If you want every verified update on this story as soon as it drops, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell now. This case needs eyes, care, and calm attention from people who want the truth. In the days before Lily and Jack disappeared, family life looked like the sort of small, chaotic rhythm that most households know well. The record the RCMP later compiled paints a picture of a family moving through errands and ordinary tasks. On Wednesday, April 30th, all 5 family members, including the baby sister, went to Brooks Murray's grandmother's house to do laundry at about 2 p.m. That detail is small, but it sets the scene. Kids running between rooms, adults helping, the kind of short trips and holds on a day that later become crucial when police try to pinpoint who was where and when. More than an hour after that laundry run, Brooks Murray took the baby to get a license plate for her car while Daniel Martell stayed at her grandmother's with Lily and Jack. The documents note a stop at the Ultramar in Millbrook for gas and a quick purchase, a vape for Daniel at a nearby shop. After the short stops, the family ran more errands, did grocery shopping, and didn't come home until late in the night, around 10:19 p.m. Those tiny time stamps, an hour here, a purchase there, are the sort of anchors investigators try to use when they reconstruct a timeline. Every receipt, every camera captures a patch of time that helps verify who was present and when. On May 1st, the day before the children were reported missing, the family did not send Lily and Jack to school. Instead, they drove into New Glasgow for the afternoon, then came back and spent the evening at home. Brooks Murray initially told police she had put the children to bed at 9 p.m., but in a later statement she revised that to 10 p.m. Martell told investigators he stayed up late and did not know the time he went to bed. He says he was exhausted and at one point fell asleep around 9:09 p.m. Brooks Murray said she heard the children giggling, laughing, and talking to each other in their shared bedroom in the early hours of May 2nd before falling in and out of sleep. When the room fell silent, she woke Martell and they checked the house and yard. Shortly after that, she placed a 911 call at 10:01 a.m. to report them missing. Those timing shifts may feel like trivia, but in a missing person's case, the difference between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. can be the difference between a clear trail and a trail that has gone cold. Human memory is not recorded video. People remember sensations and emotions, not precise timestamps. They misremember small details when exhausted or traumatized. These inconsistencies are common and expected. They don't automatically mean deception, but they do mean investigators must be careful. They must cross-check statements with hard data, wherever possible. That is why police pursued CCTV footage, phone pings, bank transactions, and eyewitness statements so aggressively. Each objective data point is a check against human recollection and helps narrow the window when the disappearance most likely occurred. The hours after the 911 call turned into a massive, chaotic search. More than 100 trained volunteers joined search and rescue teams. Helicopters and drones scanned Canopy and Lane, K. 9 teams combed scent routes, and local people walked mile after mile of densely wooded territory. The area around the Sullivan property is not a tidy suburban lot. It's Pictou County's rough country. Forested tracks, pipelines, watercourses, old wells, and hidden terrain that can conceal small things in minutes. Search teams move methodically, but the land works against you. Fallen trees, underbrush, and the way sound and sight close over immediate traces all complicate a search. Volunteers and professionals alike worked under rain, fog, and a kind of dull, grinding hope that drives people to keep looking until their legs give out. Within that chaos, a few pieces of physical evidence emerged that became the focus of investigators. Relatives found a pink blanket down the road from the home on the day the children were reported missing. The blanket was seized by RCMP and photographed. Another piece of the same blanket was later found in a garbage bag at the end of the family's driveway. According to statements Brooks Murray gave police, the blanket belonged to Lily, a small LOL doll blanket she sometimes dragged around, but Brooks Murray said she had discarded it a week earlier because she no longer wanted it. Martell told police he had used the blanket to stop a draft around the door, and that a piece had already been missing because he had ripped it when putting it up. Those details about a blanket might seem trivial alone, but in a case with few clear traces, anything that can be tied to the children becomes significant. Investigators also documented boot prints in the nearby woods. An impression from a pipeline trail was cast and sent to the lab for testing. An investigator later noted that Lily's boot print, confirmed as a size 11, was consistent with a boot print located on that pipeline trail. That kind of match provides a potential piece of the puzzle, but it is not conclusive by itself. Footprints can be moved, misinterpreted, and the passage of time and weather can degrade impressions quickly. Footprints, like pieces of blankets, toothbrushes, or socks, must be combined with other evidence to build a reliable picture. The presence of two finds, one piece of blanket in the woods, another piece in a bin at the driveway, raises difficult but necessary questions. How did the blanket fragment get into the woods? If it was discarded, was it thrown from a vehicle or carried by wind? Or did someone place it there? Was the fragment found in the garbage the same piece as the one in the trees? Or merely another piece from the same blanket? The family's accounts that the blanket had been discarded and that Daniel sometimes used it to stop a draft are plausible and human. But in the absence of other decisive evidence, each plausible explanation remains a question to be tested. Forensic testing can take time, and it is rarely as dramatic as people imagine. Laboratories examine fibers, DNA traces, soil particulates, and any biological material that might remain on fabric. Sometimes results are clear and useful. Sometimes the samples are too degraded or contaminated to yield usable data. In this case, the blanket fragments were seized and submitted for forensic work. It may take weeks to get results that are meaningful in an investigative sense. The boot print casting likewise goes to labs where forensic analysts compare tread patterns and sizes against known shoe databases, and where they look to tie impressions to specific footwear if those items can be located. All that lab work is methodical, precise, and deliberately cautious. A lab report that overstates certainty can wreck further investigations and harm people unjustly. There are also procedural reasons why some pieces of evidence can take longer process. Chain of custody must be maintained. Samples must be collected under conditions that allow for defensible testing. Labs handle multiple high-priority cases, and there are limits to how fast DNA sequencing or trace analysis can occur without compromising quality. The courts also require careful paperwork when police seek access to devices, records, or camera footage, which adds time but ensures that any evidence used later in court is legally obtained. Beyond the lab, investigators also rely heavily on digital and documentary reconstruction. The RCMP sought cell phone records, GPS data, and highway video of drivers leaving Nova Scotia between May 1st and 3rd. Those records can confirm or rebut witness statements. A tower ping places a phone at a certain area. A toll camera image shows a car at a particular time. A bank transaction with a receipt's timestamp can corroborate where someone was and when. Investigators have to line up all of those pieces and see which ones converge into a single coherent timeline. When they do, they can begin to exclude what did not happen and focus on what might have. The human fallout from this event is always in view. People on both sides of the family and those close to them have spoken out, and grief and frustration have been visible. Some relatives have said they do not believe the children are in the woods, insisting something else happened. Others have raised questions about prior interactions with child protection services and whether more should have been done. Those concerns are legitimate parts of the public conversation. Investigators must take them seriously and assess whether prior records suggest risk factors or potential leads. At the same time, families under public scrutiny are under enormous strain. The balance between public interest and private pain is one of the hardest aspects of a case like this. The community response has been tireless. Volunteers have shown up with boots, flashlights, and drones. Prayer vigils have been held. Neighbors and strangers alike have handed out flyers and scoured back roads. That kind of grassroots energy is both moving and useful. Local people know the terrain, small access points, and seasonal trails that outsiders might miss. When searches are coordinated properly with investigators, volunteer efforts can add real value. But they can also unintentionally disturb potential evidence if not managed carefully, which is why search coordinators work to channel volunteer energy into organized sweeps and tasks that protect the integrity of the scene. There's one blunt reality that sits behind all of this. In rural, forested terrain, time is a merciless factor. The longer it takes to find a person or a clear trace, the more likely it is that environmental factors, weather, wildlife, and the simple decay of biological materials, will erase the clues needed to resolve the case. That is why the first hours and days of a missing persons inquiry are so intense, and why investigators move quickly to get cameras, dogs, and specialized teams on the ground. It's also why public cooperation, immediate tips, preserved video files, and careful eyewitness reports can make a decisive difference. What can people do right now that actually helps? First, if you saw anything in the area around Gairloch Road, Lansdowne Station, between the evening of May 1st and the morning of May 2nd, even if it seemed insignificant at the time, report to the RCMP through official tip lines. Dash cam footage, security camera files, and photographs with original timestamps are far more useful than a social media upload without metadata. Second, if you have direct contact with family members or saw interactions that might matter, pass that information to investigators rather than tweeting it. Investigators can follow up and verify. Third, respect the family's privacy and avoid amplifying unverified rumors that can cause harm and distract from the search. The RCMP and volunteer coordinators have asked people to channel their energy into organized, documented assistance rather than ad hoc searches that may unintentionally disrupt potential evidence. The case of Lily and Jack has held people's attention because of its sheer human pain. Two small children vanish from a yard in the kind of ordinary moment we all relate to, and their absence is felt by anyone who imagines their own child in a similar situation. Those feelings of powerlessness sometimes erupt into speculation, anger, and rumor. That emotional reality is understandable, but also risks drowning out the careful, methodical work that can actually bring resolution. Forensic labs, digital forensics, witness interviews, and coordinated searches are not glamorous, but they are how cases get solved. At the moment, the investigation continues on multiple fronts. Forensic testing on the blanket fragments and boot impression proceeds. RCMP are reviewing video and tip submissions, cross-checking timestamps, and moving to validate any lead that can be independently confirmed. They are re-examining search areas, and they continue to ask the public for help. In small towns and larger communities alike, the hope remains that one small, verifiable detail, a timestamp clip, a remembered route, a piece of cloth with DNA, could finally tilt the investigation toward an answer. Until that happens, the family lives minute by minute in a vertigo of hope and dread. The community, meanwhile, keeps searching in practical ways and supporting the family emotionally where it can. If you have anything at all that could help investigators, please pass it along to the RCMP. And if you want to keep following verified updates from this case, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you see new, confirmed information as soon as it's released. The careful, persistent attention of the public can be a force for good in cases like this. Not with speculation, but with concrete, documented help. Lily and Jack's story is still unfolding. The days before their disappearance, a laundry run, a gas stop, groceries, and bedtime, sit now like a mosaic of small decisions and moments that investigators must piece together. Each scrap matters. A blanket fragment, a boot print, a timestamp on a receipt. That's how answers arrive in hard, often slow ways. Keep looking. Keep sharing verified information, and keep pressure on the search in ways that help rather than harm. For the family, for the searchers, and for the hope that still burns, every careful lead counts.